Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Deal. I'm your host, Danny Brown. Please subscribe to our channel on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you consume your content. Leave us a comment. Tell a few people you know. We've been growing and expanding, and every comment and every 5-star review helps us tremendously. So this is where we break down every week top real estate agents and executives, what makes them tick, what's their key to success, what's their blueprint. This week's special guest, Scott Gibson, Managing Director at Compass in Southern California. He was the founder of Gibson Realty that was acquired by Compass. He started in the business in the 70s and 80s, an LA, Southern California guy, got into management, ran Coldwell Banker for many years when they were at the height of their time, over 25,000 agents he managed. Anyways, we drop a lot of knowledge here, and he gets into some legends in the business that he's worked with. There's so much to learn here and so much to dig into, so I hope you enjoy this. School is in session. Welcome back to The Deal. I'm your host, Danny Brown. Today, we have a very special guest, Scott Gibson. Welcome to the show, Scott. I've been looking forward to having this chat with you.
Likewise, Danny. Good to see you.
You too. It would be a lot more fun. Did we ever figure out where we had a bar together in Austin, or was it Dallas or Vegas? I can't remember, but it was a good bar the last time.
I had a joke one time. I think that was Las Vegas.
It was Las Vegas. I remember.
I did see you in Austin at the Compass Retreat.
Yeah. So for those of you not familiar with Scott, Scott has done it all and seen it all in real estate. He started out as an agent and became a top agent, got into managing offices, and then started and launched his own brokerage, Gibson, grew that, scaled that, eventually merged or got acquired by Compass. Now he's a managing partner, managing director at Compass. So he's seen all sides of it. So I'm really, really excited to get your take. We talk to a lot of agents in the sales side of it. It'll be really interesting to get your take from someone who's seen both sides, sort of holistically, the whole circle. But why don't we start with, tell us a little bit personal stuff, where you grew up, what your parents did, and where you went to school, and then how you got into real estate. We'll start with that little intro.
Great. I'm not sure I've grown up just yet, but my youth was down in Palos Verdes Estates. And my parents my dad was a Native American Californian, and I'm also a native Californian, and there's not many of us around. So I grew up in Palos Verdes. Ended up graduating from UCLA after going to Long Beach State and USC, and finally found a college that would give me a degree, and went into real estate right out of college as a salesperson at that time with Harley Sandler.
Oh, wow. Nick Sandler's dad.
Tremendously.
Me. I said Nick Sandler's granddad, not Nick Sandler's dad. Doug Sandler's dad.
Right. I've been in the business before voicemail. That's almost like trolleys.
Payphones with nickels.
Payphones, right? On vacation, calling for the payphone to find out my messages.
Let me guess, knowing you and going to USC, UCLA, Long Beach. Why? Well, you didn't try Pepperdine, Fullerton. Let me guess. You like to have fun and party a little bit, maybe. You didn't.
I was supposed to go to Brown University originally on a baseball scholarship, and decided to go to Long Beach State, and was a walk-on basketball player there for their team with Jerry Tarkanian, and transferred from there to USC to play basketball there as a walk-on, and moved to UCLA to play baseball with Gary Adams, which they wouldn't let me, the Pac-8 at that time, wouldn't let me because they said I'd moved around too many schools. I would have had to wait a couple of years.
I did not know this history of you. I know Gary Adams well. He recruited me in high school. I ended up at SC, Irvine and then SC, but Gary Adams was a local legend, and Dave Ravitz, my best buddy, played for him, and so I knew him very well. But I didn't know you were a big baller growing up. So anyway, so you went to college, played some sports, were an athlete, local kid, and you went right into real estate for the Sandler Company, Harley Sandler, who's another legendary real estate family, and Doug Sandler is just an incredible mentor of mine and a wonderful manager and a special guy himself. And Nick is killing it too. So tell us about those days. What was it like starting in real estate then with payphones, no computers? Definitely no.
It was a lot more fun in a lot of ways, let me tell you. I mean, today's environment is so fast, and I don't have to tell anybody that compared to back then. That's when you could take a vacation and really have a vacation. But back then, things, I got into the real estate business in 78, 79, 80, high interest rates. We hit kind of a very similar situation, unfortunately, building right now in our business where inflation zoomed up and the Fed ended up tightening dramatically and ended up selling houses with interest rates at 16% and 17% and doing land contracts and AI wraparound mortgages and anything I could do to make a sale, and to find somebody that would buy, of course. So it was a really tough environment, but I learned a lot then. And that was my most successful year in 82. And I, for whatever reasons, once I got into real estate, I had always wanted to go into management. And I'm kind of a team guy, and I played on some very successful teams in my life, from Little League on up through high school. Won a lot of championships on some great teams, and just in my blood to create a team and build culture. So I went into management. Actually, my first management job was in Marine Del Rey in 1984 with Fred Sands.
Wow, so you were a young guy in your 20s. That's what it sounds like. You were super young and you're getting into management.
I was.
Wow, so Fred Sands, so you went from Harley Newman legend to Fred Sands, another legend, and you're a young manager in the Marina Del Rey in the 80s. Man, were the Lakers, Showtime Lakers, hanging out in the marina then?
Well, the marina was a very quiet place down there. There's lots of open ground, and it used to be the vacation spot for people from Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
Kind of like the equivalent of Santa Barbara today, probably, that way.
That was before they developed the mall streets on the canals. It was only the beach. They just had the beach side.
Yeah. You could have purchased those lots down there for $70,000 to $100,000.
Don't remind me. My dad could have bought one for $50, and he was living on Voyage then on the beach. He could have bought a couple for $50, and he was like, "This is a swamp. What is anyone buying here?" Wonderful. Thanks, Dad.
So I went from Fred Sands to ended up managing his Brentwood office, and then I bought a company called Kent Realtors down in Westchester. We ended up with about 150 agents. We had a number one market share in Westchester, opened an office in Marine Del Rey, and a little one in Santa Monica, and ended up selling to Prudential California Realty at that time. And then from there, Prudential merged with Jon Douglas Company at that time. And then I submitted my name to became a regional for the Prudential Douglas Company. And then they ended up selling, I believe it was 1996, to Sendant at that time to become Coldwell Banker.
And you were at Coldwell.
And I was at Coldwell. And managed, actually became a regional and ran west of 405 down to Santa Barbara, from Santa Barbara down to Newport Beach. And then ended up becoming president of LA with 61 offices in the heyday of Coldwell Banker, I would say. At that point, we had 43% market share in LA. And we're doing about $20 billion in sales in my operating company. So pretty gigantic thing, and moved back east to New Jersey for the company. Sendant ended up having 8 operating companies from Maine down to Palm Beach, including the Hamptons in New York City, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Massachusetts, New Hampshire. So it was a very interesting time. So I was there about 3 years, came back.
Where were you back east exactly?
I lived in Parsippany. Our headquarters was in Parsippany. Actually, I lived in Mountain Lakes in northern New Jersey. New Jersey. It was beautiful.
It's New Jersey, or where is that?
Yeah, New Jersey.
Yeah. Wow. So you went to an LA, Southern California kid, ends up back east.
Yeah, I was their experiment.
Yeah. So
that's for sure.
You've spent most of your career then in the management and leadership and ownership side. I didn't realize so young that you started management, which is really hard to do as a young goes and issues and conflicts. Imagine you've seen some really things, to say the least.
Yes, I have. The Prudential Douglas, between Jack Douglas and and the Lupi, and then the Prudential side was probably the most interesting. But
Yeah.
Fred Sands was another interesting guy, and those were the icons of our day, and certainly paved the way for today's businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jack Douglas, you don't get any more legendary and iconic than that. I've heard so many stories through him. I know the family and his kids I'm friends with, and just incredible times in real estate and LA. It really was establishing LA as a global city. That was the beginning of it really being huge. And they played such a role in it. Those guys like Fred Sands and Jack Douglas and all these people you're referring to. So this is who you grew up with in the business. You ended up being at the time top company, Coldwell Banker, which is a massive operation. So very corporate as well. So why don't you talk me through? We'll keep going. Let's keep going with York, because you then restarted and started Gibson.
I did. I for whatever reasons, my back east stint was very rewarding in a lot of ways. I had 3 different brands I was running there, and had a number of projects that I had implemented back there, but decided that I'd been away from LA for such a time that I had wanted to go back, and I saw an opportunity, or thought I saw an opportunity. So I opened Gibson in 2008 from scratch, left New Jersey in 2007 when I was on a 1-year national non-compete, and then opened up in 2008 with a great group of people in Brentwood.
So let's unpack that, because that's a huge move. You've been at these massive corporations running, I don't know, how many agents at the Coldwell Banker were you overseeing?
Well, I had
thousands, I imagine.
I had, I think it was 27,000 agents, I think, in my group.
Just a few people, just a few problems. So you go from that.
Well, I had 7 presidents, so
I understand. It's not
up to me, so it wasn't like individual. But yeah, I had to sign off every quarter for the that nobody was doing anything illegal for the Sarbanes-Oxley, because it's a publicly traded company.
So you start over, come to LA, back home. Who did you start with? Was it with Pat Heller? Or who was the
Pat
group?
Heller? I brought Pat in as my manager and partner in Brentwood. She had been at Coldwell Banker. I'd known her for a long time. A fantastic.
My manager now. She's another legend in the business. Incredible.
Fantastic leader, and has so many great attributes. And it was a great start. We had a really pretty good start until the crash. Really, that's the only way I can characterize it. I'd planned for recession, but I hadn't really planned for that recession.
Great recession. No one was prepared.
The Great Recession. I don't know what was so great about it, but it was awful. So I think Lehman Brothers was just one example of what I remember back then, and of course my bank, that Indy Mac Bank was my bank, and they went out of business. So it was a very difficult time. I had fantastic people, though. My agents stood behind me. We managed to get through that. And in 2015, I brought Pacific Union in as a partner. And Pacific Union, as you may or may not remember, they ended up purchasing John Arrow and Partners Trust. And we were running Gibson separate as Gibson. And they were converting Pacific Union, those entities over to Pacific Union. And that would have been in 2017, I think, 2017, thereabouts. So at that point, Mark McLaughlin, who was the president of Pacific Union, approached me and said he'd been approached by Compass. If he did something, I would have to do something, because it was a package deal for them. So we went back to New York and spent a couple of days with Robert and the group back there. Very, very impressive. Then even become more impressive today. And, the decision was for us to move forward, and kind of the rest is history there. We went through that transition in 2018, and now we finally have all come into one under Compass.
And so talk to us, there's a lot that I'll go back to, but talk to us now, your role today, now that you're at Compass, you were merged 5 years ago or so, and now what is your role?
I'm a managing director. Really, my role is I'm still running what I sold, Compass, the Gibson operation, basically, and added a few more offices. I have 6 offices now. about 385 sales associates there. It's west of 405. The other piece of the puzzle that was sold was my escrow company, which was Vicente Escrow, which became Chartwell, which was Holly Hanks and group, which is a fantastic escrow. So I'm running that and assisting the company any way I can.
Yeah. All right. So I got to go back to 2007 or 8, starting Gibson. Now, when you start your own company, I mean, we all talk about at a certain point, we get to a level as an agent, we want to think about starting a company, being a broker. We all talk about it. Very few people actually have the balls to do it. And then those that have the balls to do it, very few are able to have the capacity and grit and savvy to execute and make it work. And then to make it execute and make it work through the worst recession of our lifetime, that's unbelievable. So you had one office to start with, I imagine. A typical brokerage office in Brentwood. I don't know, how many people were involved in the beginning? Is it 20 people, 50 people? I mean, it's one office.
Well, I learned a lot from when I had Kent Realtors, because I went through a very difficult time there. That was 1993. When I sold that, and 91, 92 were very tough years. The Gulf War started back then. So, I learned painfully many lessons running Kent. So I was able to apply those lessons to starting Gibson and keeping it going. I tell you that the most important lesson, and I'd say that for anybody that's going into business, is you have to be 100% committed. You can't just put a toe in the water. And it was all in for me. It was all in mentally and physically. Cashed out everything I had because the recession that time made me do it. But once you're there, you're there. I had a 10,000 square feet in Brentwood, and things change. It's like you can plan all you want, but you have to be adaptable to the changes in the environment that you don't have control over. As long as you have the tenacity and the great people around you to support, you can get through it.
So that's a really key point right there. You went all in, and not only did you go all in, you put your money where your mouth is, and sounds like, I assume, like most businesses, survival mode when you're going all in with your personal finances to support a company through a recession. That's a lot of stress and a lot of sleepless nights. I'd like to dig into some of these other lessons and tell me a little bit about the types of agents that you thought were able to flourish even in those times. I know we all took a beating, but there were some that were able to figure out how to eke out deals, and like you were figuring out how to survive as a new company. Any sort of key personality traits or things that you can share about what it took for those agents to get through that and to come through the other side?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, every one of those agents that came into us at that time were experienced agents, but more than that, they had been working in the business in a way that they were so consistent. They worked every day, and they prospected every day. They stayed on it. They were able to persevere. And the reality is that those people that treat it like a job, is, we don't want to hear that maybe, but you really have to get up every morning and go to work. And you can't kind of roll in at 11 o'clock. I mean, I didn't really become a successful sales agent until I decided or discovered that I had to treat it like a job. And even if I had nothing to do at 9 o'clock in the morning in the office, I was there. I was around other agents. I'd prospect. I would find something to do back then. And I think that that's true today. I think you have to have a structure into your work day, and you have to stay with it through thick and thin. And I think even though your direct actions don't bring you direct business, I think just the energy that you put out will bring you business from other directions that you sometimes don't expect.
I totally agree, and I think that is a lost concept, that like we are the brand, we are the company, and everything you're doing at every moment, even if it isn't a direct pitch to get a sale closed, everything we're doing could lead. Always have to be open and available and ready and energized. And I think what I hear you saying is you got to show up. Like, this is real world. This is real business. You can't not show up and go all in and expect to be elite in a very competitive business. It's just, you're fooling yourself.
You can't.
You just can't.
Los Angeles is the major leagues, residential real estate in the United States. So whatever they say in New York certainly is a major league area, but it's not like Los Angeles. It's not the same type of competition. People come in and think that we're vicious here. No, we're just very, very competitive. And you really have to attack it just that way. You have to be able to rise to that level.
I don't know if you saw that recent stat, but you're probably well aware of it just from being in the business. But I out this stat that 90% of real estate agents get out of the business within 5 years. As the article that came out that just said we had the most people join the real estate business in the last 2 years than ever. But overall, 90% are gone. So you got 100,000 agents join, 90,000 are gone in 5 years. I don't know how many more are gone after that. But as you know, and I know, even out of that 10% left, out of that 10%, only 10% of that pile is really doing consistent business and taking it serious like a business. And I think there's not too many people that succeeded at a high level that I've seen by accident, that haven't put in their time and take it serious.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot at stake. Even more telling statistic around that is only 1 in about 12 to 14 people that, as new licensees, are around by the second year, at the end of the second year. So when you take that number about 5 years, it's even a much higher attrition than you know. And generally people come into the business with the misconception that all they have to do is meet people and they'll make a sale and they can make an easy 100 or 200,000 and they'll be fine. Maybe I only need to do 1 or 2 deals a year. It just doesn't work that way. It's way too competitive. And our clients in Los Angeles and the West Side are way more sophisticated, generally speaking, than a lot of other areas. So, and we're dealing with a much larger assets for these people. No matter how wealthy they may be, they certainly have a respect for their own assets, and they don't want to entrust them to someone that they don't feel that they can trust to handle their affairs the correct way. So as an agent, you have to be at the top of your game.
Well, talk us through that. Talk us through some of the things that you've seen agents do well, so either whether it's qualities, whether it's specific agents that you've respected through the years, anything that you could sort of partake as like, hey, newer agents or someone growing your business, this is sort of thing that you need to do or think like to succeed. Like what would be some of your thoughts, your advice, your things?
Agents that really have a love for the business, and that love has to include staying up on what's going on. You have to know your inventory. You have to know your pricing. But more than that, you have to stay educated. You should go to seminars whatever you can do to improve your knowledge of the business and to keep increasing your energy and stay on top of things is important. You certainly have to have a positive attitude. And those agents that have negative attitudes, they don't last very long. Agents that don't get along with other agents and don't understand the value of their reputation, while there's probably a few out there that we still don't feel like they have the reputation we want to work with sometimes. I think in general that the best agents, the most successful through the years, are the ones that garner the highest reputation in doing business with. And I think that's critical. You need to have a positive relationship with your fellow agents.
That's huge. And I think that's critical, especially to newer agents or agents that have come in the business in the last decade. A lot of them have come into the business based on what they've seen on TV and the TV agents, and it's really not a realistic portrayal. And a lot of that is those TV entertainment.
You mean laying on your couch and doing a $20 million deal while you're in your pajamas?
Yeah, with your...
I cringe at those shows, let me tell you.
It's cringe-worthy for those of us that have grinded out and built real businesses. But a huge amount of agents that have gotten the business, that's what they knew about being real estate agents. And they don't realize, like what you just said, relationships with other agents, that may be the most important thing you ever do. That's who you're going to be doing business with over and over again for decades. And if you don't get that concept and build trust and treat people right, I mean, that it's going to hurt you and whatever clients you think you're going to be representing. And
I think another really important characteristic is writing your goals down. Generally, what I find is most of my top agents that I've worked with have written goals, whether it's personal and professional, and whether or not they look at them every day or they look at them at the end of the year. And that's been a key piece of my success is I write my goals down every year. I have a huge list of goals I wrote down many, many years ago. I revisit that and I work on things every year. But I think writing them down gives you an exponential chance of success or succeeding in those goals.
You're hitting on all the fundamentals. I love it. Writing your goals down. Yeah, it's not rocket science. It's easy but hard to do, right? What is it? It's right. Simple concepts. Have goals, be positive, take care of your body and mind, have good relationships, learn as much as you can. The basics. But why is that so difficult for people to do? It's hard to execute.
One agent, Charles Pence, I can tell you, he can tell you exactly, based on the amount of people he talks to daily, how many listings he's going to get that month. He's got it down to that kind of a science. And he knows if he doesn't talk to that amount of people, then he's going to get this amount of listings. So he can actually gauge his business, how much business he wants to do, by the amount of people he sits down and talks to. So that group there who's been working so consistently north of Montana for so many years, and again, that didn't just happen overnight. I get people who want to farm an area. I said, well, if you're willing to commit to 5 years at minimum, and you have to have a monetary commitment and a physical commitment and a mental commitment to that area, it'll take you 3 to 5 years to start generating consistent, meaningful business. But you're not going to just go in with it, again, a toe in the water. And if you don't get any results in 6 months, you give up. And that's really what happens for a lot of agents. They don't get results in 6 months when they're new, and they give up. Sometimes because it's a mental challenge, but sometimes they can't afford it.
How many years, this is a loaded question, but how many years would you expect someone to have to grind it out full-time, focus, before they start having a consistent business? I know it's different for everybody, but if you were going to say, hey, this is the blueprint, this is what I'd be prepared for, what would you say from all you've seen?
I think it's got to be, it used to be 5 years. I think it's 5 to 7 years, I think, is where I would go. And if you get to the 7th year and then you're really able to accelerate between 7 and 10, I think. And you get to 10 years and you should have a significant base. And those agents that maintain a strong CRM is another characteristic, whatever that is. But just mailing is not a CRM. You really should have a database that you're accumulating and upgrading and adding to every day, every week, every month, every year. By that 10th year, you should have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,000 people in that database that you can access in a meaningful way. And you're going to generate business. You start to generate referrals. Probably by the 5th year, you're starting to generate consistent amount of referrals, a few a year. I think the other piece is agents that network with agents and other areas generate a lot of business from referrals. So again, going back to your agent relationships, make sure you go off to the Compass retreats or whatever you're going to. Take advantage of those opportunities to meet agents from other areas, other states, because you can generate business out of that too.
Yeah, I've seen so many good agents generate. I think Larry Young has done that consistently his whole career. He's a great example of one of the best agents there ever was, and one of the best relationship guys. Just straightforward, sincere, authentic, treats everybody honestly and equally, and but puts in so much work building relationships. And I think he's been at the same company 30 years, goes to all the things, and people around the country refer him deals. Now that's the prototype case, and that's a legendary Michael Jordan example. But we could all do that in our simple ways by joining whatever seminars and company retreats and networking when you go out of town with other agents. Even if you get one deal every year or two, that's absolutely
true.
That's a big boost.
And it goes both ways. It enables you to also refer out. So I do have a lot of agents. I've seen a lot of agents generate some substantial money around referrals. And when I think about consistency of action, going back, Ron Wynn is one of those guys too. He's still door knocking.
He door knocks my house, Ron Wynn.
He might have been in the business longer than I've been in. And of course, he grew up in the business, and he's I think last year was 67th on the Real Trends list out of 1,000. So
and I don't know that anybody's making more money than Ron Wynn, regardless what the charts say. That guy owns real estate everywhere.
But
he's door knocking in my house.
He has a passion for the business. He loves the business.
So passionate.
He's not even in it for the money. He's in it for the business.
Oh, he's so competitive, so passionate. And
very much so.
Diligent.
He's a great example of someone that has persevered through so many things and grown tremendously in the business.
Yeah, I mean, the names that you're bringing up here, and I'm all incredible names. For anyone who doesn't know any of these names, you should look them up. You should follow them and, try to learn. But Ron Wynn, what a work ethic. A guy that's he's the highest part of the business for 30, 40 years, 50 years.
Absolutely.
And he's door knocking, still hitting
it. Is.
Still learning, still growing, still prospecting, just competitive. Mamba mentality for sure.
Yeah.
Love it. All right, well, we could talk on and on for hours about stories. We may have to do a part 2 and part 3 and bring on Ron Wynn and Larry and some of these people.
Oh, he'd love that.
Charles Pence. Pence, Hawthorne, Silver. Come on. These guys are so consistent year after year after year for decades. It's amazing to hear these things. When I think about some of these people versus some of the hot shot names that have come up quick, it's such a different animal. But
it's very different.
Very different. Any other parting words of advice or wisdom that you want to drop? The stage is yours. You've already, school has been in session and we could go on for hours, but anything else you want to add about where you see the business going? We are in a new sort of unknown transition time here as we're in May of 2022. Interest rates now at 5%, not 16%, but what's your take on what's going on? Someone who's seen every market. What's your crystal ball telling you?
So I think the market's already changed. We just don't know it yet. I don't think interest rates are going to go up to 16. Everything moves so much quicker. It's good news and bad news around that. Back when, even in 2008, that recession didn't just happen overnight. It started in 2007 and matured, if you will, into 2009. I think that we're already probably in a recession. We've already had one negative quarter of GDP. If we have another negative quarter in GDP, we may already be in a recession. We just don't know it yet. I think the Fed is trying to equalize inflation with interest rates. So as inflation, it's still a tremendous time to buy even at 5% because inflation's at 8%. You're borrowing free money. It's negative. So the Fed's goal is to bring those things into equilibrium at some point, and that can be painful. So it's going to be really a product of how strong inflation is. And I would say my last thing is that you just have to get your head around the change, and you can't worry about the change, but you have to move into the change and don't fight the change. So we're definitely in a seller's market right now. I'd call it irrational exuberance with the type of sales I'm seeing right now. But I believe that we're going to start to move in and closer to a buyer's market, certainly by fall, late summer, early fall. And that could be okay too. It might be good to have a little bit of balance in our marketplace, certainly for buyers and sellers. I think by the end of the year, it's also possible that we could see the height of interest rates, and that would be very quick, really, in the scheme of things. But really, the way things move now, and I don't know, the Fed, everybody's waiting for the Fed to come out with their interest rate rise right now of a 0.5 point and to talk about what they might do going forward. But you might see interest rates peak by the first quarter next year. And then there might be at some point, because there's a lot of pressure for our economy to grow. And you can't grow as interest rates continue to rise. So it's really kind of a mixed bag right now. I think we're in between changing tides.
Very well said. And I would bet that Ron Wynn and Larry Young and Charles Pence and others, that they're not going to be afraid of the change. They're going to be pivoting and figuring out and doing the.
It'll be an opportunity. And it'll be an opportunity for our company too, because you'll start to see those. And I know there's a lot of pressure on agents out there now. I know there's a lot of agents that are struggling right now because of the lack of inventory, and they're not making money. So I feel badly about that. And it's going to be a tough transition.
Yeah, but hopefully when we get through that transition and it equals out, it will create more transaction, more people able to transact, and hopefully that's good. It may be painful for short
Right.
term, but we got to be open and nimble and ready to pivot and go all in on what we need to do when that happens. I mean, that's just the world we're in.
Just have a plan, work your plan, stay consistent, stay positive, and be strong. Be all in.
Be strong. Well, I love it. Scott Gibson, thank you for dropping knowledge on the deal. It's always good to hang with you. We'll take this offline. We'll get cocktails and dinner soon and chat more. But I love it. Thanks, man. Thanks for spending time with us.